let's make some candy together. Specifically, we're going to be making Butterfingers, but of course, we're going to be making them vegan. Hi there, I'm Val. I made the website and YouTube channel Very Vegan Val. If you like talking all things vegan, I hope you stick around and subscribe. We'd love to have you. Now, Butterfingers were always one of my favorite candies growing up. I pretty much only had them during Halloween time. We would go trick-or-treating, and then me and my sisters and any other friends we had spending the night would take our bags of candy and empty them out onto the living room floor and then sort them into piles. And there were always tiers. There were fruity candies, which were generally not as good as chocolate candies. Then there were the good chocolatey candies, things like Reese's, which I always said Reese's, but we're not gonna have another Dia incident. Reese's, Snickers, maybe Milky Way. We had sort of like mid-level ones like Three Musketeers and Twix bars. And then of course there were the ones that like nobody really wanted. Things like Mounds, Almond Joy, Baby Ruth, or are they Babe Ruth? Whichever one they are. Payday. Those ones we would sometimes just give to our parents, which if you grow up with siblings and competition, you know, just giving something away for free, a bit unheard of. But nobody wanted the coconut-based candies. Then we would sit down and try and work out some trades, like I'll give you 2 of my Kit Kats for 1 of your Reese's, things like that. There was one candy, however, that was sort of beyond trading because we had sort of decided as a group that everyone really thought Butterfinger were the best. And they weren't that common of a treat, so the 1 or 2 Butterfinger we got every year were highly coveted. Now, Butterfinger are amazing. They're chocolate covered, and then on the inside, there's this like layery, flaky, buttery, sweet, toffee-like, a little bit nutty, peanutty center. And you bite into them and they crunch, and then you can feel them, the toffee getting just sort of like worked up into your molars where they'll sit and they'll start to bore little cavities, but you don't care because you can still taste the Butterfinger. And who needs teeth when you have Butterfinger after all? Just out of curiosity, if anybody watching this is a dentist or like personally knows a dentist, I've always felt like Butterfinger are worse for your teeth than other candies, but did I just make that up or is that true? I'd love to know. Either way, I'm excited to make some more today and to relive the nostalgia. I can't really wait anymore, so let's go ahead and get cooking. First things first, we're gonna want a tray with some baking paper on it, and we can just set that aside. You can measure this one right into your pot. 1 cup or 200 grams of sugar. And adding a tablespoon or 2 of water will help the sugar melt. The next thing we're gonna measure at is 1/2 cup of peanut butter. 1/2 cup of peanut butter is the same as 128 grams. Now you want your peanut butter to be as soft as possible. So what I'm going to do is microwave it for about 30 seconds to a minute. And I'm just gonna add like maybe a tablespoon of vegetable oil to that as well. You wanna be careful when doing that because heating it a little bit will soften it up and make it more liquidy, as will of course adding some oil. But heating it too much will start to dry it out. That'll be good for us. We're just gonna set that aside. The last thing you want on hand is 2 teaspoons of baking soda. We will also want chocolate, but that's happening later, so that can wait. We've got our sugar on the burner. And I'm just mixing it up so that it all melts evenly. Once it's well incorporated like this though, you want to stop mixing. I think the best way to describe it is caramelizing sugar is a hands-off process, but an eyes-on process. If you mix it, you could risk your sugar crystallizing, which actually don't stress too much about because I found if you continue to mix it, you can usually just melt that back in, but ideally, it's not happening to begin with. It's an eyes-on process because sugar will burn very quickly. We want to get our sugar to the hard crack stage, which is 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, like 5 or more years ago, I bought a thermometer and then I found it wasn't showing me accurate temperatures, and that was annoying. So then I got a different thermometer that was also not showing me accurate temperatures, and that was annoying. And so then I got a third thermometer, only to find that that was also incorrect. I was very frustrated, and I have not owned a thermometer since then, which is annoying. I think this is a great moment to say that while you shouldn't be mixing it, you can swish. And that's a good way to incorporate the sugar from the bottom of the pot to the top. Sugar burns at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So my method for telling if the sugar is ready without a candy thermometer is the nerve-wracking one where I wait until I feel like it's about to burn and take it off the heat. I wish I had a candy thermometer because that would be a lot less stressful than determining, is it in fact about to burn? Before it's burnt, which, you know, there's the thin line. You can see the water we added is bubbling off now. Once this is to temperature, we have to act very, very quickly. So I'm going to move my camera out of the way so we're ready to go. I think we're there. All right, we're moving fast. Baking soda in. We might have been a little bit early. That's pretty blonde, but that's okay. Now peanut butter in. Now onto our tray. Now we just need to let it cool. It came out a little more crumbly this time than the last time I tried it. Hi, dog. He's off to yell at the mailman. It came out more crumbly this time than the last time I tried it. But it's good, so I'm just gonna go with it. I suspect the reason it is more crumbly this time than last time is I might not have achieved quite the 300-degree mark. But I'm gonna be honest, they're different, but both ways are good. So either way, I'm a happy camper. Chocolate time. We've got a pot with a little water and a metal bowl. We're gonna add about a cup of chocolate to our bowl. This is a dark chocolate with very little sugar in it. You can use whatever chocolate you like, of course, but I think the contrast with the sweetness of the Butterfinger might be nice to have a little dark chocolate. I'm gonna also add a little bit of coconut oil just to help everything melt smoothly. And then we're just gonna cook on our double boiler until it's melted. This is sort of the gentler way to do it, but you could also use a microwave and just microwave in increments of about 30 seconds at a time, and it will achieve the same thing. I was hanging out with my parents the other day, and I'd gone apple picking recently, so I chopped up an apple for us to eat. I put it on the table. My dad looks at it, takes a bite, and says, "Wow, there's so little core on this apple." And I said, "No, Dad, I cut out the core," right? Because, like, I cut the apple into slices, so I removed the core. And I swear he looked at me, like, condescendingly. Like, "Oh, you don't eat the core of your apples?" I'm really not sure what to make of that. Maybe I've gone soft. I don't eat my apple cores regularly. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like if you're going through the effort of chopping an apple, it's not really much more of an ask to take out the core, is it? If you too, like me, were blissfully ignorant that taking the cores out of your apples makes you weak, now you're not. Don't be weak like me. Get the added fiber and arsenic. Our chocolate is melted now, so we can take it off the heat, but our chocolate is not tempered. And chocolate that's not tempered will not get hard and shiny. So what I do is a quick temper. I will say it's not like 100% predictably right, but it works most of the time, where I just add about a quarter to a third of a cup of chocolate chips to the melted chocolate. Roughly about a quarter of the volume of that you originally added, or so, like something like that. Anyway, and then you just use the residual heat in the chocolate to melt in those chips. So you just stir constantly until it is entirely melted. There's a whole science behind it. I only sort of understand it, but this trick seems to work. Again, like 80% of the time, you know. But we're not going for perfection here. We are just making delicious treats. I've got this mold in the shape of something like candy bars. We're gonna use that. Spoon a little bit into your molds. So I'm just brushing it up the sides. You would ideally like everything to be covered in a thin layer. Okay, we've got it all coated. I'm just gonna throw it in the freezer just for like 5 or so minutes. It doesn't need to be long. We just want the chocolate to set enough that it's not gonna move around when we start adding our Butterfinger filling to it. Now I actually have 2 versions of the Butterfinger filling, one where I added half a cup of peanut butter and one where I added a 1/4 cup of peanut butter because I wasn't sure how peanut buttery I wanted it. So I'm just gonna show you whichever one tastes better. But I thought I'd put it out there that if you like a less peanut buttery option or a more peanut buttery option, these both did work in terms of that quantity of peanut butter, and they have a very similar texture. And I'm just cutting it roughly to the shape that we want. It's very crumbly. I know I said 5 minutes. It's been like a minute. We're gonna move on though. We are just going to fill each mold with our Butterfinger filling. Make sure you leave a little bit of room in the top because we're going to seal it off with chocolate, but we do want it mostly full. Time to top with some chocolate. I'm a little bit shy on chocolate, so I'm just going to melt a bit more down so we can finish off this batch. We're back with more chocolate. Just filling in these gaps as much as possible. Obviously, easier some places than others. When there's a lot of gaps, you do end up needing kind of a lot of chocolate, which is not really, you know, what the original candy was about, but that's okay. Having gaps in your chocolate bars is also okay because we're not selling them. We're just making them for our own nostalgia and happiness. And because I can, I'm gonna add some flaky salt on them. We're not replicating Butterfingers exactly. In some ways, we're making something better. All right, now we're just gonna put this in the fridge until they've set entirely. I will say I'm very pleased with how the temper on this turned out. They are not melting in my hand at room temperature, which is completely the goal. Look at that. That is delicious. The inside is crumbly and peanut buttery and flaky. That little bit of salt on the outside really sort of elevates the whole experience. I will say it is not exactly like a Butterfinger. I think the thing that makes it least like a Butterfinger is, one, there's more chocolate in proportion to the filling than there is in a Butterfinger. And that's probably mostly because I'm not a very sophisticated chocolatier and there was enough gaps in between my Butterfingery layers that more chocolate seeped through. I wonder if you either made your Butterfinger filling in a mold or if you crumbled it up like in a food processor or just smashed it and then filled it in, if you'd get a more even layer. Something to try if you're gonna make these yourself. It's not really a bad thing, however, because the biggest difference between this and an actual Butterfinger is the quality of the chocolate. I think most people know that American chocolate, and I'm not talking like specialty small brands or anything, I'm talking like big corporation American chocolate, is terrible. And this tastes like chocolate, not like wax. It also has a little bit less of that stick in your tooth quality that a real Butterfinger has. And I'm not really sad about that either. And while my Butterfingers are not exactly the same as an actual Butterfinger, it definitely brings up the nostalgia. That is a candy that just tastes like happy times in childhood. Thank you so much for making candy with me today. I had so much fun and now I have tons of energy and I might have to run around the block a few times after I eat another Butterfinger or two. Tell me, what was your favorite Halloween candy growing up? Or what is your favorite Halloween candy now? And is it vegan? If it's not vegan, have you ever made a vegan version? Let me know. I'd love to hear all about it in the comments below. While you're there, if you could also give this video a thumbs up, we would be so appreciative. And if you subscribe, you'll be the first one to know the next time we publish. Thanks so much. Bye. Happy Halloween.